Morning. Morning. Morning, good. That's what my phone will not mute anymore.
All right, good afternoon. Welcome you to the Town of Hilton Islands Gullah Geechee Cultural Preservation Task Force meeting. This is Monday, August the 7th. Hello to my colleagues and certainly the staff. Vacation for a while. Hot summer. Back. Call the meeting to order. Compliance with board.
Yes, sir, we are. Certainly. Mr. Simmons?
I'm here.
Mr. Abdul Malik?
Here.
Mr. Campbell is excused. Ms. Green?
Here.
Mr. Hens?
Here.
Stevens? And Ms. Wright is excused.
Five or more members. Good.
We have an agenda set before us, and at this time, I would entertain
Second.
a motion. Mr. Simmons. Next, we have minutes of the June 5th meeting. We have time to review those. If there are corrections or questions, I'd like to entertain them. The minutes of our June 5th,
So moved.
moved by Mr. Hens and second by Mr. Simmons. Unanimous as well. Okay, do we have any appearance by citizens? All right, next on our agenda is staff reports, general staff updates.
Good afternoon. That's loud. And I just want to remind you all to have your mics on as well. Yours should sound like this. So if it does not sound like this, then please adjust. Red is on. Counter to what everything we've been taught. The red is on. Wonderful. Well, good afternoon, Task Force. It is great to be here with you this month. I know we missed last month, so I hope everyone was well in July. I just have some general staff updates. Wanted to incorporate this agenda item to just let you know generally what staff is working on so that you know what we're always up to, in addition to our our regular standing agenda items. So some quick updates. I am continuing to work on the comprehensive report update. We will be scheduled for another quarterly presentation before Town Council on the status of the implementation of the Gullah Geechee Cultural Preservation Project Report of 2019, of which we will bring that draft before the before the task force before we deliver that to Town Council. So you will have that prior to a draft and then be able to make any adjustments or ask any questions or anything of that material. Just so you know, we are moving forward towards reporting on the full report recommendation as the strategic action plan item number 13 suggests that we should be working towards full implementation. So up until a couple months ago, we were kind of only reporting on the top 6 16 priority projects. We have addressed all 16, whether they've been implemented or whether it was out of our scope or whether it's operationalized. We've addressed all 16, and I think it is time for us to start moving towards reporting on all 36 so we know where we stand with the full report. And I will say that we have addressed over half of those recommendations, but because we had only been reporting on the top 16, we actually hadn't been reporting on all of the things that staff has been doing on those materials. So I look forward to giving that presentation to you all next month. And also one other note, there's only about 7 or 8 of the recommendations that remain kind of untouched that we haven't actually started or addressed or planned for. So I think that's really great news and great progress. And again, look forward to giving you that full report. We have some interim numbers to report on the Gullah-owned acres and historic neighborhoods, and some of the task force members and I and members of the community worked on that. They're interim because we still have some reconciliation to do with property owners on the list, but Luana actually is going to give that presentation a little bit later, and then we'll have a full report for you in the coming months. It's cultural preservation recommendation number 7 of the report, the cultural education program. We are making progress on that as well. As you know, we're planning to do video series for town staff to engage with, as well as requiring the Gullah Heritage Mobile Tour and a presentation for that program. And so we're making progress on that, and we'll begin filming for the video in a few weeks. So just wanted to give you an update on where we are with that. A general announcement, there are a couple of general announcements. We have an open house scheduled for tomorrow for the dirt road paving program. You all should have received notification of that, and also information has gone out to the community, to the public around that. But just to say it verbally here for all who are listening and who are in attendance, letters are currently in the mail to all property owners on Pinefield Road, Mitchellville Road, Freddy's Way, Alice Perry Drive, and Horse Sugar Lane, and Alfred Lane regarding the open public house for tomorrow for the dirt road paving program. It will be located, the meeting will take place at the Island Recreation Center at 20 Wilburn Road. And anyone who's interested in the dirt road paving program, especially those property owners of the roads listed in the notification, are welcome to attend, and that is tomorrow, Tuesday, August 8th, from 5:30 to 7. And that's in direct response to some feedback we've gotten from the community and a desire to give an update on how that process works and where we stand with these. The roads listed are the ones that are active right now, being in part of that process. And of course, there are many other dirt roads on the island, and we'll talk about those at the meeting as well. For the town open positions update this month, we don't have a formal update. We are hiring for a number of positions. So if anyone you know is looking for work, we're hiring from everything from an administrative assistant in the fire rescue department all the way until the executive director level at the CDC, the Community Development Corporation. So there's a range of positions open, and we will be hiring for those. Of the positions that you all were most interested in, we have filled several of those, and we are still hiring for the Workforce Housing Program Manager. That one has continued to be a challenge to fill, and we'll let management speak on that if you have any questions about that. One other general announcement, the town is hosting the 360th sighting of the island and 40th birthday incorporation of the town. Want to share that flyer with everyone. So everyone is invited, and you all should have received information on this, to celebrate the town's anniversary of incorporation and the anniversary of the sighting of the island. There will be some of the main events will be a community picnic on August 26th from 4 to 8 at Low Country Celebration Park, and then a community concert, culminating in a community concert on September 16th at 7 p.m., also at Low Country Celebration Park. If you're interested in participating or hosting an event, you can visit the website. And this is the website for all to participate in and get more information. There's also going to be a series of smaller events in between that are island-specific and celebrate the history, traditions, and culture of everyone on the island. So wanted to share that information with you all today. And other than that, that is it for our general staff updates.
Yes, Mr. Hens.
Shauna, thank you for that update. Regarding the cultural preservation project report update, and I'm looking forward to that. So that was authored in 2019, you said? So it's 4 years old. I know it had 36 items, and that's a lot, and we've been focusing on 16 and haven't gotten all of them yet. At some point, should we take a look at that to make sure that, one, it's still relevant as far as areas of importance? And if we should add some items to it, 4 years have come and gone, and maybe there's other pressing needs that we might want to maybe add to that or substitute, just thinking out loud.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to jump in there, Krishana. I know your history doesn't go back quite that far to 2019 here at the town. Mr. Hens, that's probably a good question. In some of our previous meetings, we did have some discussions about some of the recommendations where we had organizations that were identified that may not be the best to carry on those particular tasks for those recommendations. So I know we have talked in general terms, but nothing very specific about how we attack those recommendations strategically. So that would be a very good thing to do, to look at that report. And I believe that out of that report, some of those recommendations actually came from town staff. I think a couple of them were added to the 36 that we have now. So yeah, I mean, I think we can look at that report and see where we are with it. As Krishana just said, that we'll start looking at all of them and see where we are with them. And most of them have been at least addressed in some form or another. As the priority updates, the 16, I know we've been focusing on those, and hopefully that does not mean that we're not working on the others. So I think that's what we're saying.
Absolutely. And when I bring that information again, it'll be draft. So if there are updates or things that you want to, discuss further or focus on or put focus on, we can discuss that at the time.
And since there's so many, if we could get them prior to the meeting so that we can caught up.
Yes. The plan is to provide a PowerPoint that discusses some general information so that we can all follow along, but then you'll also have a supplemental document that has all 36 and everything that's been done for those 36 and what the plan is for the path forward. So that it would be great if you could look at that before the meeting, because it will be somewhere around 20 pages. So we're going to be going through all of that, but I will reference the recommendations in the PowerPoint, and you can use your supplemental document to do that, and it'll be available to the public, and everyone will all be working on this draft together.
Perfect, thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I did have a question about the dirt road pavings that you mentioned. The streets that you mentioned, are they all ready to be taken care of? Or, you have all the right of ways that you need to get those?
Not necessarily. No, not necessarily. So I think what the roads that are outlined for the meeting are the ones that we've been actively engaging with, and they may be at various points in the process. So I think there is at least one where we are still looking for the right-of-way acquisition, signing of the papers and such, and then others that are almost ready to start being paved. So they'll talk about where each of those roads are in the status.
But all the funding that you need, once you get what you need from the residents, all the funding is already in place?
I'd have to get back to you on that. I'm pretty sure that these are the ones that we are set to be able to work on, which means that the budget has been established, but I will have to confirm that, and that's a great question to ask if you attend the meeting. If you don't, then I will ask it for you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir, Mr. Simmons.
Yeah, Krishana, just to pick up a little bit on the dirt road project, those that you have outlined, where or when will additional roads, because I'm aware of one road that a family said that their road was on the list or somewhere that was not mentioned. So will there be an opportunity for, obviously for families to request, but is there room for additional roads, or will that come after the ones you've already cited?
To my knowledge, the program is going to continue even after these roads are done. And I know that, so I'm not the project manager on that program. Carla Vincent is the project manager, and I know that she has plans to discuss all roads in the whole program at the meeting as well, which is why, even if you're not a property owner on one of these roads, you're invited to come to get that general information as well. So that would be a question that she'd be able to answer. But to my knowledge, the program's not going anywhere, so they'll be scaling and continuing on, once these roads are done.
Other questions? Okay, thank you for the information about the celebration for the town as well, and I've been involved in some of that planning, and it's coming along very well. And of course, the first date is that August the 26th date, so just make a note of that on your calendars if you can be a part of that. We want everybody to be included as well. If there are more questions on that item, we can move on to the next one. Thank you, Krishana. Okay, our next item is Community Planning Manager Introduction, Mr. Richard Edwards.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Since y'all didn't have a meeting last week, I wasn't able to come meet everyone, so we want to take this time just to introduce me to you. I'll be working with Krishana and you all on all the projects you have moving forward. Krishana has most of it handled, but I'll be here for support anytime she needs anything. And if y'all need anything of us, feel free to reach out to me as well. And I will also be presenting the LMO and district planning update for you all.
Okay, and before you do that, can you maybe tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, where you've been, what you've been doing?
Oh yeah, I can do that. So originally I'm from the Boone, North Carolina area. Got my undergrad from UNC Charlotte and my master's from the University of Texas at Arlington. Took my first job in the Myrtle Beach area, lived there for a few years. Then spent the last 6 years in Atlanta. I worked for a developer in D.R. Horton. And in the last 3 years, I was a consultant traveling all over Metro Atlanta, doing everything from writing comprehensive plans, being in-house staff when they had lots of turnover. So been on both sides there. So I was happy to finally come to a community where I'm housed in one office and I help one set of people. And I'm happy that it's Hilton Head because a lot of great development coming in here and a lot of great work coming out of it.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you. So on the LMO amendment updates, Phase 4A, which was the FAR and single-family parking regulations, that was reviewed by Planning Commission on April 27th, and they did vote 6-3 to recommend to Town Council to approve the Phase 4A as written by staff with a few modifications to some of the verbiage in the language. And right now we are anticipated that Phase 4 will go to PPC on September 20th. So we still have all those amendments moving forward as well. Phase 4A can be found on our town website right now because it's going to Public Planning Commission on August 10th. So if you review that and have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. Or if you don't want to hunt for it on the website, let us know and we can send you over the documents as well.
We don't have that available today, do we?
I'm sorry, no, we do not have it available. But we can have it to you and we can discuss next meeting, or we can send it to you after this and you can email us with any questions you have on it.
That would be good, yeah.
Okay, perfect. And then for Phase 5, the RFQ did close July 25th, and we did receive 2 proposals, and staff is currently reviewing those proposals, and we're supposed to have our comments to procurement by the end of the month. So early next month, we should have a proposal to Town Council as well to vote on. Then on the district planning, the Marshes went to Public Planning Commission on July 13th for a review. And the current draft is on the website. And right now we are working with our consultants to get a community survey and updated plan from the PPC comments. And once we have that on the website, we can inform y'all as well. We'll take any comments on the Marshes via the survey from the entire community, or we can send that all to you. And you can email us with your comments as well, whichever you prefer. We're happy to accommodate either. And then the Bridge to Beach District is scheduled to go to PPC on September 14th. And once that goes to PPC, then we will put the community survey online and the updated plan online for that as well to receive any comments on that. And then at our August 10th meeting later this week, we will be working with PPC to prioritize the rest of the remaining districts. So hopefully after August 10th, we can let y'all know what order all the districts will be reviewed in following that. And that's my update on the districts as well. If y'all have any questions.
Okay, yeah, I have some discussions with one of our colleagues, Mr. Simmons, who expressed some concerns about how some of the plans for the district planning was going to affect some of the Gullah Geechee properties here on the island, and whether they would have to, that they fall under what we've been calling an overlay and have some protection from some of the recommendations. As it relates to the size of properties and the use of properties, certainly from the work we've done with family compound and family subdivisions, and for those folks who may want to do something with their property, how that would impact, what's happening with the recommendations coming.
Yeah, and so I think the way that's worked out now, we are still working on those regulations as family subdivision and compound is also in the phase 4. So we're working on those answers right now, and once we start having some of that out, I'm happy to provide you with all of that information. I don't want to give you piecemeal information and not have all of it together, so we're actively working on that and we can get you something.
Okay, and you said that they had been presented to the Planning Commission on the 13th of July, or the Public Planning Committee?
So phase 4, which is where the family subdivision and family compound, that's looking to go September 20th to Planning Commission, then it'll be forwarded to PPC. But the marshes did go on July 13th as a district plan. So they have their review, and then it kind of sets idle after that until we start the next review of plans. And then once we're done with all of the districts, we'll take all the districts for one final comprehensive approval from Town Council.
Other questions for Mr. Edwards?
Just so I get it right, so Mid-Island was the first district planning.
Mm-hmm.
And Marshes is up second, then Bridges to the Beach is third, and there's 5 more maybe, so there's 8 total.
There's 8 total, yes, sir.
Now, is the Mid-Island, is it like done? What's the process? Is it like done and then we're gonna move on to Marshes and then it'll be done and then we'll move on to Bridge to Beach?
Yeah, so essentially what we're doing is we're completing all of the district plans, letting PPC review it, then putting a pause on the process for them until we get the 8th one reviewed by PPC and all those comments addressed. And once we have all that complete, then we'll repackage everything and send it back through Planning Commission, PPC, and Town Council.
So, I'm gonna try to get them all done and then move them forward for
As
public
one package.
comment.
Yeah. So we'll start doing more public engagement once all of them are finished. We're still working with our consultant on how that'll look at the time. But right now we are starting the community surveys, which allows you to rate different answers and then type in your answers for different ones that are open-ended. So we are actively taking community input on these. We're just not having a full-on public engagement meeting or meeting with the community just yet as an
You don't
open
want
house.
to do that one at a time. You want to do it all island-wide.
I think it would be island-wide. We don't got that process completely nailed down yet. So when we have that, once again, we'll share it with you. And I think it's to have maybe a couple plans at one time so you can kind of focus in a little more on what we're talking about. But once we get with Missy, Sean, and the consultant, we'll have that nailed out hopefully relatively soon. So we'll know what that looks like soon.
Any other questions for Mr. Edwards? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our next item is the Historic Neighborhood Permitting and Design Studio Report. That is,
Hello. Give me just 1 second while I get this pulled up. Okay.
while you're doing that, normally from time to time when we go through these items, I have allowed our folks in attendance here if they had any questions, and I did not do that. If anyone here in our attendance has questions about some of the other items that were presented previously, I would allow you to do that now. Obedient audience, I love that.
Obedient. Okay, well, great. So I'm excited to give the Historic Neighborhood Permitting and Design Studio report to you for this month. We're still reporting on since the inception of the program. I'd like to transition to reporting yearly, calendar year, once this year is over, right? It's between fiscal year and calendar year, and so I feel like it still looks, this is a long reporting period, is what I'm trying to say. And so we'll transition to reporting by calendar year once we get through 2023, just a heads up on that. So currently 63 total design studio requests that we have received and that we have worked on. For this report, we had 3 new requests between June and July. We had 3 new requests. We were able to complete those 3 new requests, and then we also completed one of our active projects. So the 4 that we completed, we had 1 maintenance request, which was a new one for us, I think. A family called and said they were having a hard time seeing to exit their driveway onto 278. Worked with staff to understand that, of course, 278 is SCDOT, South Carolina Department of Transportation owned. So worked with the family to submit a maintenance request online with the South Carolina Department of Transportation to have those, it's with some trees and some bushes overgrown and blocking their view to turn out of their driveway right on a 278, so definitely a safety hazard. So we worked with them to do that, and we'll follow up, on the completion of that from the SCDOT side. We had 1 new family compound come through and come and get approved. We had someone who had a significant piece of land looking to do workforce housing. We were able to give some initial information on things to consider, of course, calculating the density for them and just having a conversation about all the moving parts there. And then we had the active project. There was a family subdivision that staff had been working with a large family to do their concept plan and to walk them through the subdivision application. So I was able to help the family with the application side, and then staff on the development review team were able to walk them through the concept planning and surveying and getting all that done. And we were able to get that submitted. And so as you know, with the design studio process, once the family or the applicant actually submits an application for a plan review, then we consider it a completed design studio, but then they go through the development review phases and application process. So that family is now going through the family subdivision application process with the development review team. So that's the kind of high-level overview of what activity we've had for the design studio. And then we've discussed having some case studies the last couple months since I've been here, and I thought that it would be great for us to dive deep into the family compound and family subdivision, given that we've been, giving feedback and having conversations on that with the LMO Phase 4 amendment process. So we'll do a deep dive into family compound and family subdivisions. And just hold tight for me, because it is a lot of information, and I don't think anyone really likes to hear themselves talk. So all who are listening who are not familiar with what a family compound or a family subdivision is, a quick definition of that. A family compound is a single parcel of land that allows multiple homes to be built with reduced buffers, setbacks, and access widths. Access to the property and infrastructure such as water and sewer can be installed to each home as the homes are being built. A family subdivision allows lots to be subdivided with reduced buffers, setbacks, and access widths. Access to the property and infrastructure can be installed as the homes are being built. Vacant lots in a family subdivision do not require access and infrastructure to be installed first. In order to qualify for a family compound or family subdivision, property owners must meet the following criteria. The property must be in the same family, which is defined as spouse, parents, biologically or legally adopted children, group of persons related by blood, and descendants from a common ancestor as an extended family. Property must be located in a Hilton Head Island historic neighborhood. and property must be in the same family since 1956. Town Council adopted the Family Compound and Family Subdivision Ordinance on July 20th, 2021. So, just an overview. So this reporting period, again, we're looking at the inception date of July 20th, 2021, when we started these applications, all the way through this past month, July 2023. It's a 2-year reporting period. And so I have a chart here pulled up. This is the total numbers that we've worked with, that we have had come through our processes for family compounds and family subdivisions. As you can see, there are 5 total family compounds and 5 total family subdivisions. And there are a number of processes, status that the application moved through. But before I get into some of that other information, I think, looking at these numbers and looking at how long these have been in existence and kind of thinking about this as, 5 compounds and 5 subdivisions, I think can, raise some questions about how many were we expecting? Are we, meeting the need? And are people utilizing these in the way that we intended? I think that, these numbers are relatively speaking, right? We've got a smaller, amount of land in the historic neighborhoods and of people who are actually able to qualify for these given the criteria. And then there are also families who are already living on family compounds, and having subdivided land before these applications were formalized. So there's a great chance that we're not capturing every family compound that exists, and we call those existing, conformities. So just to kind of set the stage a little bit for that. So you'll see that we have a number of statuses on here. I will speak to the ones where we actually have numbers, an application in that status right now. So the corrections required status. So for family compound, we currently have 2 under corrections required. And for family subdivision, we currently have 4. Under the corrections required means that we have received the application has been routed for review to the necessary staff, to the necessary town departments, and that could be traffic, the traffic engineering, could be fire rescue, development review, and all of these folks weigh in on the concept and the site plans, the surveys that have been submitted. The corrections required status means that they are currently, staff is currently giving those comments to what to things that need to be corrected on the site plan or on the application. And then approved, it means that that the applicant has met the necessary corrections required, and they're now ready to move on to, a finalized status. So the finalized or certificate of compliance stage for family compounds means that you're able to now apply for, whatever necessary permits you need to do the work on the property. So if that's a mobile home placement, then you get a mobile home placement permit. Or you can get, you'll apply for whatever the other types of building permits that you might need. And then on the family subdivision, we don't currently have any that are in the finalized certificate of compliance stage, mainly because those applications are not typically doing development at the time of application, because they're generally for just subdividing the land so that each family member can have their piece and it can be legally documented. Does that make sense? Okay, tracking with me?
Yes, so under family subdivision, it does say that you have 1 approved?
Yes. So it's made it through the pretty much the whole process, and then if they were to want to do any development on the land, they would go for the next phases and get the necessary permits and everything to do the development on the land. And then I wanted to go over just so with these applications that we have, been working with, these applicants that we've been working with, what are some of the successes and challenges that we've seen, and how we're using those to, and we're using all of this information rather to inform the phase 4 of the LMO amendments that we're working on. So for these family compound and family subdivisions, the applications are fast-tracked, so you're able to go through the mobile home placement process if that's what they're doing. And then one of the challenges I would say is that, if someone has a piece of vacant land, or if they have land with just like one mobile home on it, you wouldn't necessarily go for the family compound because it's meant to have multiple homes on the property. So the benefits that you get from the family compound, the reduced setbacks, buffers, and access widths, if you only have one home, even if you have the land in the family since 1956, and even if, and it's a historic neighborhood, you wouldn't qualify because you only have one home on the property. But if you were planning to have multiple homes on the property, you could plan, and then we could get you into the family compound application to receive those reduced setbacks and buffers ahead of having more than one home. So that can be a little bit tricky for some folks. And then with the family subdivision, it's great that we, provide templates for this application type. So helping people understand like what it would need to look like and what necessary types of development would need to be on the property in order to have this family subdivision, kind of giving you a visual for what that looks like. And then some of the challenges that we've had with the family subdivisions are balancing the infrastructure development in phased approach. So, or planning for the future. Most families that are utilizing this application are wanting a paper subdivision, meaning that the land is only subdivided on paper and not actually, developed on the ground. But these subdivisions require that land improvements be made, such as access to each lot, as well as something, for example, stormwater calculations. So how is the stormwater being drained on the property? We would need to know that information in order to approve the concept plan, in order to approve the site plan, but we don't require that there be development until the lots are developed. So it gets tricky. It's kind of hard, to walk people through that process and to approve these as such. So with the paper subdivisions, we don't end up getting as much information that are needed, which I think is reflected in this chart where it says that we still have 4 in corrections required status. This is not telling us how long they've been in that status, but chances are, they're in that status for several months or so because, trying to work out how they're going to do the development on the ground. And then one other thing that we've noticed coming up with these is the application process for the family subdivisions. You are required to have a family notarized affidavits. So if you have a family that is, you're 20 people, 11 people, what have you, then we have to have a signature for each of those names. And as you can imagine, people live, all over. And so coordinating families getting those papers signed and then sent to us and notarized can be a bit of a administrative challenge. But I think the applications that we've received and the one that we've been able to approve, and we have several others that are coming up for approval as well, they found creative ways to get their family to get those papers into us, but just something to be aware of. And I would say that, all this information we're using to inform our process improvements from the development side, as well as from the customer service side, at the front desk and the Community Development Information Center, the ladies at the front desk, and through the development review process, and utilizing that for the LMO amendments. So I have some other information here. Issues with that. I mean, it's such a big issue that it would be hard to say that we're solving it in the design studio, process. But one of the ways that we are able to, that we've seen coming through the design studio, Native Islanders providing housing is that, Native Islanders are the ones who are using their land to provide housing for other people. I don't know if anybody else is really doing that in particular, land that's been passed down from generation to generation, and recognizing that there is a shortage of affordable housing and saying, okay, well, I can put, 9 mobile homes on this property. Those types of plans are the ones that are kind of coming through, I would say the most and quickest. And that's where that statement comes from. And this actually came from one of our development review team members because they also see not only the family compounds and family subdivisions coming through, but they also see the major and minor subdivisions coming through and the minor, development review plans coming through as well. So recognizing that Native Islanders are the ones who are putting in these applications and really getting things done to provide housing. And that's, I think, what we're trying to get at with this statement, and just, recognizing that and being able to have these other items, family subdivision and family compound, that allow for, the reduced setbacks and buffers and access widths, so that it's easier to even be able to provide housing.
Yes, Krishana, you mentioned that when the applicant comes in and they go through the design studio process, that they're considered done with design studio, but then they're handed over to the review team, or development team, review team?
Yep, you got it.
So those persons who come in, they go past design, and then they have opportunity to still have someone to walk them through the processes so they get through development as well?
Yeah, so our planners are great at providing customer service. They're technically not under my purview once they leave the design studio, but I typically do stay in touch with people after that process. So we'll always try to provide, end-to-end communication and service to people.
And the reason why I'm asking that question is because my son just recently went through that process. I mean, about 8 months ago, and it can throw you for several loops. When you're trying to get things done. So if someone is there to help, it will be good,
Yeah, and I think, there's a whole host of things on this, so I hope you had time to review it before the meeting, and it's available to the public on the package online as well, if you want to kind of spend some more time with this. But we have, some of the overall successes and challenges listed here, and I think you spoke to a couple of those. One, I think we're still trying to get information out to the community about the design studio process and about these applications. So we have, I think, 5 looks like a low number, right? But we also know that we aren't catching everyone. There have been times where I've seen, a minor development plan come through, and I'm looking and I'm like, I know that person qualified for a family compound. So they missed the design studio process, and they missed the opportunity for the family compound. And it's a matter of, education, as well as, training of our staff to make sure that they're aware of all the things that we offer, and to look into those things as they come. So if, and then we'll send back, hey, here's your concept that we designed for you to take to the surveyor, and we won't hear anything for a year. And there's really nothing that we can do about that, right? We will contact them. We have email threads and all of that where we're trying to get in contact with people. And if they're not working on their, project anymore, then we might, that's kind of where those like 31 active projects comes from on the monthly design studio reporting. We have some projects that we know are lingering, but waiting for communication, or, folks might be trying to get their ducks in a row with their family to make a decision, or getting a survey, or a number of things. So it could be a number of things on that.
Has anyone voiced any reluctance to hold off on doing the family compound with the homestead, with the districting that's coming? They're going to have better opportunities when the districting is done?
That's a great question. I have not experienced anyone saying, oh, I'm gonna wait until district planning is done, but I have heard the sentiment in the community. So I have heard people say, well, why would I do a family subdivision? I think they were just speaking kind of rhetorically. Why would I do a family subdivision if I know that, my density might change, or something might change with the district planning and LMO process? I haven't had anybody in the design studio, tell me, I'm not gonna do this right now. I'm gonna wait for, the LMO amendment.
Thank you.
I'm going to say that I've had conversations with some individuals in the community, and we've been anticipating the CDC coming online, because there may be some resources that can help families if they're trying to do family subdivision, and certainly if it's as it relates to workforce housing.
Couple of questions. I want to go back to your reporting. You said that the reporting is going to expand a year versus our regular monthly reporting today?
No, I'm sorry, that was probably confusing. I think it's, I'm trying to get us out of the rhythm of reporting since the program inception. I want it to be a little bit more clear what we're actively working on in a calendar year versus we're reporting on both the design studio, what we did this year versus last year, and so on. So we would still do the monthly reporting, but we'll transition from reporting from program inception till today. We'll start, what did we do for the whole year of 2024? Let's talk about that. And we'll transition to that when we get there.
My next observation is a point that you made about staff when applicants come into the town for the projects. I think the point you made about staff being able to redirect applicants is pretty important, because I'm aware of applicants who have come in and I believe that they were given the long way around an application process. Primarily the family compound versus a placement. And I believe if you have a piece of property and one home existing, and you want to put another home on, I would have imagined that would be a placement versus a compound application, or would it? Which is one of the things I think one of the applicants that I know ran into.
So I think they would probably be better off doing a family compound in that situation. Because once you have more than one home on a property, you have two different development review process to go through, depending on how many homes it is. So the family compound makes it a little bit more straightforward. They recognize that you're all family. It's a very quick application, or like a short application. And then your survey, your concept, your site plan only has to just, show the next house and all the other, requirements. The mobile home placement application comes after you get approved for the family compound. So that's where that kind of breaks down. Is
it either or you should? I mean,
it's up to the applicant, what they want to do, with their property. But it's an either or if you want to do a minor development plan, or if you want to do a family compound, if you qualify for a family compound. Because of course, everyone doesn't qualify for a family compound.
And what was the qualifications once again? Okay, I got you. We good. Yeah, no need to repeat that. My next question, an approval to go ahead and subdivide a property, which I think you mentioned. I think families really need to be aware of that, that you can get the opportunity to subdivide your property, and then when the action is going to take place, then you meet the standards of which have been approved. So you can still get your property subdivided, have the approval to move forward with the subdivision, I should say. So it does work that way. I'm aware that it does work that way, and families should be aware of that. It does make a difference. And I think that's one of the things that families may not necessarily be aware of.
There were a couple of just additional points I just want to provide to just kind of drive that point home, and also so that we all can be working together to make these processes run a little bit smoother. We're still having challenges with access. That's been something that I know we've brought to the task force over and over again. And not that I have all the answers today, but just recognizing that that's still an issue. And so I think the other point that I want to make kind of tallies onto that is that, educating people on what the process is, and the town, improving our communication and our processes as well. So those are some of the things that I think, still are coming up and that we still want to be working on. The access issues can really hold up a project, and I think, folks will say that it's like, that the town's holding up their application, or that they're having, these challenges, and it could just be folks are used to driving on, a pathway on the property, but really that's not the legal access. And once you add, 3 homes, or you're subdividing the lot, then you actually do have to, have the appropriate access for fire safety regulations. So continuing to just, educate each other on these processes and preferences. People also will come to us with really tight timeframes, like, I want to place my mobile home tomorrow. They call me today and say, I want to place it tomorrow. And that is generally not going to happen, and just being able to have honest conversations with each other and, and for y'all to help us out too, when you're out in the community and you hear folks talking about what their plans are, encourage them to come, to us earlier rather than later. Encourage them to come to us before they get their survey, because they'll come to us and say, oh, I just got this survey. And of course, it may not have everything on it that is required for the application that they're submitting. So just, we're trying to use this information to continuously improve processes, also to inform policy revisions, but also to provide better customer service to the community, and want to work together to do that.
I think that also that hopefully the educational program that we're hoping to roll out will include some language or some parts of that as how staff interacts with people in the community. And as you just said, we have to have below education on both sides for people to understand the process, but also that staff is sensitive to properties that may have special needs, if you will.
Absolutely.
Question that, I'm sitting there thinking and probably directed to Mr. Edwards. Is he still here?
I think he might have left out on us. He's busy.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe you can forward this question to him and give me an
Yes, sir.
answer. He mentioned that we were going on, in terms of the districts, and they were going to be laid out kind of individually. Then they would at some point be all collectively put together and then sent through a process to the planning commissioner with that total package, so that,
Sure.
okay,
Yes, sir.
thank you.
I am officially done talking for the day.
Oh, okay, I thought you were just pausing right there. That is the end of your presentation. Questions for Ms. Krishana? Okay, great. Okay, thank you, Krishana. All right, next item we have is home safety and repair program update. That's Mr. Chris Yates. There you are.
All right, my name's Chris Yates. I'm the building official for the town of Hilton Head. Some of you may know me. I am now the program manager for the home safety repair and sewer connects programs. I will be giving you guys an update on both of those programs today. I'll pause after the first update for any questions, and then we'll move into the second part, the sewer connection. So as of Friday, August 4th, the home safety and repair program activity is 112 applications received in total. 79 of those applications are 100%, they're completed, good applications. 45 site visits have been scheduled or are to be scheduled. Out of those 79, or out of those 45 site visits to be scheduled, we've scheduled 7 new site visits for next week, this week and next week. 24 home safety and repair projects are under contract or have contracts pending for a total value of $341,000. 12 of those 24 home safety and repair projects have building permits issued. There are 2 building permits that are pending because we've had some flood issues. The homes themselves are above flood, but they've got heating and air equipment in 2 cases that are below flood that we need to get mitigated. And then the underpinning of one of the homes did not have adequate venting, so we're having to go back and add venting. We didn't find this issue out until after we had gone into contract, beginning of the week. We're then going to line up, depending on how these staff visits go this week, we're going to line up another 10 within the next week to go out for bidding. And that's going to be with the 4 that we have on the books, plus the 5 that we're doing this week, and hopefully another one. I called 7 individuals last week. I've gotten 5 responses, so I'm hoping I have at least 1 or 2 for a total of 7 by the end of this week. which will give us a full 10 or 11 that we can put back out for bid the following week. As of today, five of the original 14 permitted jobs have been completed on the home safety and repair. Now, with that said, we've got some other home safety and repair applications, like for trees, that I'll get to in a minute, that will add to that number as well. So speaking of trees, there are 9 tree removal contracts that are underway or completed for an estimated value of $19,779. 6 of the 9 tree removal applications are under contract and are permitted. The contractors pending to schedule a start date on those. They have roughly, I think, 60 days to begin and end the work on those tree tree permits. One of the tree permits is actually, or one of the tree applications is actually waiting a contractor quote. We got a quote, it was way too expensive. I think the crane, we had to bring a crane in, the crane operators wanted $25,000. So the Jones Brothers, our tree contractors, has gone out. They're soliciting their own bids for the crane work on that one. As you know, this program's capped at $15,000, so we're going to try to do our best to work within that budget. There are 2 tree removal contracts where the work has been completed, and that's out of that 9 total that I gave you. So the work has been completed on those. So with the total value of $341,000 and the roughly $20,000 that we have under contract for trees, that's going to leave roughly a balance of about $224,000 in that account. Now, when I do this next round of 10, I'll probably have enough money in this fiscal year's budget to do another 5. So roughly about 15-ish, somewhere in there, depending on if we have any more trees that we're able to get taken out this year, on top of what we already have done so far. So we're looking at roughly close to 40 since May of this year that we'll have completed by the end of the year. So out of the original 79 completed applications, there are still 2 permit applications that are currently under income review through LCOG, and it doesn't take them very long. Those were submitted Friday, and we should have those back probably today. They're usually pretty quick on turning those around. 19 applications need additional information, and we're working with the owners to obtain. One of the issues that we've run into with this program is a lot of the applicants are working families. You know, they work during the day. And so when we reach out to them to call to try to say, hey, you know, we need this signature or we need this verification form or whatever, we're hit with either voicemail box that are full, voicemail box that have not been set up, no emails to email to. It's just really difficult, but we are making progress. I've been on the phones for like the last 3 weeks, and I've been able to push through about 4 additional applications that were just pending because they didn't sign, right? They didn't sign the application, or they forgot to put how many dependents were in the household. Just simple things like that, but it just takes an extraordinary amount of time to chase after it because of the working family situation and not being able to make those calls after hours. Let's see, we didn't receive any new applications as of Friday for that week week ending August 4th. One of our contractors, FH Passion, they actually have 10 permits, but out of the 10, the 2 are the mitigation projects that we're waiting for them to give us quotes so we can revise the scope of work on the permits. But out of the 8 remaining permits that they have that they can actually do work on, they are currently working on 5 of those, and they should be finished with those. Probably 1 for the rest of this week, they'll probably be finishing up. So hopefully by this time next week, we'll have another 5 that we can add to our total of completed projects. So they're pushing really hard to get those done. Last week we returned 5 phone calls regarding construction schedules and general questions about the program. And that's it for the update on the home safety. I can take questions before we go into the sewer connection program.
Chris, so the 112 applications, is that from inception of this program? And if so, was that also back like in October of 2021?
Yeah, that would be from the date we started accepting applications, yes, sir.
Yes, sir, Mr. Simmons?
Yeah, Chris, a couple of questions. I've been approached, by certain contractors, relative, to the bid process. Can you tell us a little bit about how this bid process itself?
Yeah,
working?
certainly, yes, sir. So we vet the contractors that apply, so they'll give us, their information, their state licensing, their business license information, and then we require, insurance. They have to have a liability insurance, I forget the dollar amount, but then they have to name the town as an insured. One of the big issues that we've run into right now, we have a lot of contractors who are pre-qualified and meet the requirements, but they specialize, right? They'll specialize in drywall, they'll specialize in HVAC work, or they'll specialize in electrical or whatever. And the issue is right now, the work is such to where it needs a little bit more than just a specialty, right? It needs a general contractor or a licensed residential contractor who can pull a permit to capture all the work, not just the HVAC, not just the painting or the electrical or anything like that. And so with licensing at the state level, you have to have that contractor's license if you're going to sub it out to a specialty like an HVAC or an electrical. So with that, it limits, on the onset, because of the amount of work needed, it limits us right now to specialties, not being able to use specialties, right? Them not being able to use someone with just a one trade designation. So with that being said, what I envision is as we get through these first round of home repairs that we're currently doing, that work list is going to shrink, right? And we will get to a point to where it is just general maintenance, where we can give it to a carpenter, we can give it to a heat and air guy, we can give it to an electrician, because it's not a scope of work that would be all encompassing. I mean, several of the applications that we received, this is a multi-year deal for them. They're going to have to put in multiple applications and get multiple approvals for the amount of repairs needed. We're talking, some of these are probably $45,000, $50,000, $60,000 worth of repairs, so they're going to have to keep reapplying, right? There's no limitation on the number of times that they can apply. The only limitation is we can only process one application per fiscal year, right? So as this program moves down the road, they'll be eligible to apply again, right, in the next fiscal year that they were approved.
Yeah, I guess, speaking in terms of general contracts, I mean, the amount of the contracts, do you have a limit for each repair? I guess
That's a very good question.
Is it each contract or each repair? I mean, however
Yeah,
that's best said.
that is a very good question. Yes, we are limited to $15,000 per year, per application, per applicant.
Would that not sort of cover your tradesperson? Because I mean, what's the dollar amount where you have to have a general contractor's license? I thought there was a dollar amount to be required.
So on residential, it's $300 before a permit's required. And for permitting, that's when the licensing kicks in, right? It's when you have to pull a building permit, is when you have to have a licensed contractor.
So it's over $300 you need a general contractor's license? Is that what
Well,
I saying?
it'd be either or, residential builder's license or a general contractor. Either one could do it. General contractors are limited to a dollar amount based on their threshold of their license. A residential builder for residential projects is not limited by a dollar amount, but this is $15,000, and a level one general contractor is usually around $100,000. So I mean, even a level one GC license could do this work. The thing you got to think about is a GC and a residential builder, they're not going to do all the work themselves. They've got crews, right? They've got folks that they'll sub to, and they're licensed by the state to be able to do that. So yes, they'll have their own specialty contractors. Some of them may be the ones that we have on our list of pre-vetted contractors. Some of them may not, but that contractor has that license to do that work, and we've vetted the contractor. So that's where we are now in year one. Well, we're going into year one of work, but we're actually in fiscal year 3 of this program.
Yeah, I guess for me, and I get such an airful myself because I'm associated with so many of the guys who are contractors and are looking to, to get some of this work. And it seems from what I'm hearing that the process, not necessarily their license or otherwise, it seems like however the bidding process is, is what's creating sort of a hurdle, where.
Yeah, I can see that for sure. The town is bound by state law when it comes to procurement, and we have certain procurement guidelines that we have to follow. I mean, I think $7,500, or actually it's less, I think it's $7,499 or something like that, is the threshold to where we don't have to put it out to bid, right? If it's less than that, then we can just call up, Mr. Electrician, hey, go handle this, or this guy, go handle that. But because all these projects, again, take it to the max, to that 15,000, it kicks in the requirement for bidding. And when we send it out to bid, we have to have at least 3 competitive bids. That's what we're looking for, is 3. 3's right on target. That's exactly what we need. 2 is the next best, and with 1, we can't do anything with it. We got to put it back out for bid. So unfortunately, this last year, starting probably in January of this 2023, that's what was happening, right? We were sending these out for bid. We were ready to get work started, but we were sending them out for bid, and unfortunately, we weren't getting any takers. We would get maybe 1 back, and it would be incomplete. We were sending out packages of 10 applications, and we'd get one bid back, and you only bid on 5 of them. So we had to restart the bidding process at least twice. And out of that, what happened to get the program, started and streamlined was we entered into a state contract. It's like a piggyback where there was a city, I think it was Dorchester County, not city, but a county. They had a contract with a procurement company called Gordian. And Gordian, what they do is Gordian has fixed pricing based on state level contract pricing, and then they have a select group of contractors that they can choose. 10 contracts at $15,000 a piece. That's almost $150,000 that could have been in our pockets. So we're seeing that. It's motivated the locals here on Hilton Head to get more active in the bidding. And with that being said, over the last, 14 bids that I've had dealings with since I took over in June, 13 of those have gone to local contractors. So that's how much of a difference it's made just by that one set of 10 being issued to someone outside of the area. They realized that there's money on the table and we're not taking advantage of it. We need to get on this and start bidding on these jobs. So that's flipping around. I understand your concern. I was very concerned about that as well, but it is turning around in a positive direction.
All right. But the bids are done, when you open these bids, they are just done in-house, they are in-house opening?
Yeah, there's staff level approval. It doesn't, you don't do sealed bids until you get to the $25,000 amount, and then that's when you have to do the bidding, like you're talking about, sealed bids, where it goes to mystery reviewers, and then they do it's a numbered scale, and it's more or less, did they follow instructions is kind of how that plays out, did they, because when you do a sealed bid, like you put it out for bid, there's probably 2 or 3 pages of things, information that you have to provide. And if you miss, and each one of those things is number scaled 1 through 5. Yes, they did exactly what they were supposed to, and 1 being they didn't do it at all, or 0, they didn't do it at all. Right, and then at the end, all those numbers are tallied up, and then based on whoever got the highest score usually wins that contract. That's $25,000 and above. We don't want to go down that route. And that takes months. That's probably a 2 or 3 month process, where the way we're doing it now, it's going to be about a 2 or 3 week process at the most. So way we're doing it is it cuts the time in half, and it's a staff level, and it's not scrutinized to the T like, the sealed bid process is.
Yeah, so it's a lot bid, you can bid any number of lots, or you can bid individuals, because,
So yes, that's a very good question. So what we have to do is, because we're limited to $15,000 per contract, and we definitely don't want to go to the 25,000, each one of these homes is bid individually, right? So when we send 10 out for bid, each one of those 10 projects is bid as its own and as its own project. So what that means is, if we send out 10 bids to 3 contractors, we could end up giving 3 to one contractor, 5 to another, and then 2 to another of all 10, because they're all individuals. So, the way we rate it at the staff level is it's the best value for the best price, and then time comes in as a tertiary requirement.
all right, thank you, Chris.
Malik, you had a question as well?
Yes, sir. Well, Chris, I guess my first thought would be, in terms of getting information to new residents, what is that process? You mentioned you had like 3 or 4 new applicants this month. How are we getting that information out?
Well, I mean, we are still advertising, on the town's webpage. I think in our social media, avenues, we're doing that as well. I know when I receive phone calls, most of it is from existing applicants. I let the word out then. Anytime I talk to anyone who calls me, especially an existing applicant, I let them know, because I'm also looking in their file, I have it on my screen, how much work they've got. I let them know, look, you probably should go ahead and put another application in, because $15,000 is probably, because when I took this program over in June, we had $400,000 in the bank. And then July 1, we got another 200,000. So I'm just pushing them out. I'm trying to burn through this money, get as much done. These people have been waiting over 2 years for this work. So I'm trying to get these projects done. But going forward, once I get these first 40 done this year, it's going to be silent, radio silent, until July 1 of next year. And then given the current budget, that's only 200,000. That's only another 15. Well, if I'm only at 40 by the end of this year, and I've got 112 applications, you can kind of see it's going to be a multi-year, issue to get to the bottom of that list. And folks that are at the bottom of the list have been, some of them have applied since December or January of this year. And you're telling them it's going to be another 2 or 3 years. So I'm hopeful. My hope is when we start doing our budgeting process at the beginning of next year, that I'll be able to sway and say, hey, I really think we should try to, allocate some more monies to this, because we're able to get much more work done, and folks are not having to wait as long to get the work done.
So I guess I have to follow up with that question. If a person is already in the system and they need to reapply, is that
Yes.
the reapplication process the same as the
Yes.
original process?
Exactly the same.
Nothing changes,
Nothing changes, no.
okay?
Yeah.
And I think I'm going to kind of sort of address one of the questions that I had, and that was whether or not there was any emphasis, any focus that was given to, let's say, Native Islanders that are in the construction business. Is there any priority being placed there?
Well, I will say, out of the 3 contractors that we have currently that are pre-qualified, 2 out of the 3 are Native Island businesses. So I would say yes to that answer, yes.
And of course, now, I guess a follow-up to that would be, you mentioned that at some point, the amount of work that will go into these homes in their second and third go-around will be a lot less than 15,000, and you'll be able to use.
Yes,
Wider
exactly.
range.
That's what I see happening, yes. I envision that once we get the bulk of the work, whether that's the first 15,000 or whether it's the first 30,000 after 2 applications, it will be to a point to where maybe it is just painting. Let's give it to the guy who's a painter. Or no, they need a new HVAC system. This one's shot. Give it to the HVAC guy. Yes, that's what I foresee happening. It will get to a point to where we can send it to specialties after we
Okay.
get through the bulk of work.
Okay, and then again, I want to ask about the priority of those opportunities. If there are Native Islanders that are submitting contract, would there be any consideration to,
So it would be the same, right? It's going to be, unless it's $7,500, less than 7,500, 74,999, whatever that is. If it's less than that amount, then we can pick. We could say, okay, we're going to give it to this contractor, and then the next week give it to this one, and the next, we can go down the list. We have to be fair
Right.
to everyone. But if it's greater than 7,500, then, and less than 15, we will have to put it out for bid. So that would be 3 contractors. And we probably would do the same thing. We'd probably put it on a rotational basis where these are the 3 that, specialties that get it this go round. The next one, these are the next 3, these are the next 3, these are the next 3. Now, I will say, we don't have a lot of specialties per se that are qualified. We may have 2 electricians or, 2 plumbers or, 1 handyman who does carpentry work and stuff like that. I mean, it's not like we've got 6 of each trade. So there will be situations where it may be a sole individual who gets that work just for the sole purposes we have nobody else who's pre-qualified. So that may come to that point, but we're still probably, if I had to guess, 3 years from there right now.
but let me understand something.
For home repair, and I know she has some tree removal, all that comes from the same one budget?
Yes, so right now, the home safety repair program is 3, it's demos, it's home safety repair, and it's tree removal and trimming, and that's all out of that 200,000 per fiscal year amount of money.
I guess one more question. You mentioned about the possibility of asking for more money.
Yes.
Who makes a decision on what that number is?
So that goes through the town budgeting process, and all of that would be proposed to council through the town manager and the mayor. So I think the town manager prepares the budget based on staff input, and then he presents it to council, and then they, sign off on it.
Okay, would it help if the task force made a recommendation at more money put in that
I
program?
think so, and when we get closer to that point in time, which I'm thinking is probably gonna be around end of January, beginning of February, then yes, most definitely, we could get like a letter or something from the task group,
Thank you.
yes. If there's no more questions on home safety repair, I'd like to go to the sewer connection update.
I'm just 1 second. I believe Ms. Luana has her hand up. Would you like, please come forward.
I just have a recommendation based on the fact that people have been waiting for a couple of years just to make their application. And then if their application is filled, then they have to wait another year to have their application, put in another one for the next year. If there's some way, and I don't know how, if it's a recommendation you guys have to make to town council, that it be a shorter window, because if someone is in dire need of getting whatever the repair is, for them to have to piecemeal it this year, next year, and the year after that, people are already frustrated, they're already waiting. So maybe, an application every 6 months, something like that, so that they're already in the queue of the process being dealt with versus having to, wait an entire year after that. So, however it's worked out, I don't know, but that's just a suggestion.
Okay, thank you. That's certainly a staff level question, and I don't know what the policies and procedures are for that. But.
Yeah, so that would be something that would be at the policy level. So we can definitely make the recommendation and see, if anything can go with that. But I do know that the program was intended per applicant per year, and that maximum of 15,000 was set. But that's policy. That's what was adopted by council, so.
But if you had like 3 times as much money, as you have now in the program, You could theoretically,
We push through it, right? I mean, at the rate we're going now, yeah, I mean, we'll just keep pushing. I mean, if we can get 40 done between June and December, then we could essentially maybe get 80 done a year. I mean, but, it's just the money, right? We're capped at money.
Please continue.
Yes, sir. All right, so for the sewer connection program, not a whole lot, but in total, we've received 27 applications. 7 of those 27 are under review and pending, and right now, those 7, I believe it's addressing. It's a new development that's coming online, and the addresses have not been set up yet, so that's the reason for those. But out of the 27 applications that we've received, 20 of the applications have been approved officially by the town. 2 of the 20, the work has not started yet. 18 of the 20, the work has been completed, invoiced, and paid. As of Friday, August 4th, the balance in the account for the 18 that have been paid and invoiced is $126,000. Now, with the 2 that have not been scheduled yet or invoiced, the estimated balance in that account is $94,800. So with that being said, if we can get these 7 that we have applications for to a point to where we can approve them, we'll have the money left over probably to do those 7 and another 3, so maybe another 10 for the rest of this year. But again, that's another program where it's $100,000 a year per fiscal year. Now, this program has not seen the activity that the home safety and repair program has seen. So I think the money that's in here now is adequate for the amount of work that we do year over year. On average, this program's been spending about $100,000 a year, which is what's allocated to it. So I don't really see a big need to increase on this one.
And so these numbers have been updated.
As of Friday, August 4th, yes, sir. Yeah, they may be a little bit different than what's in your agenda or your packet, but that's because I do these weekly, and I felt like I should give you the most recent.
I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Questions?
Yeah, I know I've asked this before, so forgive me, but do we have an idea of what the opportunity is for historic neighborhoods for connecting to the sewer? 100, is it 50, is it 1,000,
I'm sorry, what was it?
Do we know how many residences are not connected yet to sewer?
I do not know the answer to that, but I can find out and get back to you for sure. Yeah, I unfortunately, I'm not privy to that. I know it's not a lot. I think the last I heard, 90 to 95% of the island is connected, so I don't think it's a whole lot, but I will definitely.
That will continue to need access to sewer and water once they get developed. So that's why when Bill from PSD was here a couple months ago, he mentioned that the number is at 95% and it will continue to kind of move it. It may not ever be at 100%. So just wanted to remind us of that conversation too.
Any other questions?
All right.
At the end of your sewer
That's the
report
end
as
of it.
well?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's very good. Thank you guys for your questions, and thank you guys for your questions and that information. Okay, the next item I have are discussion items. And this is the land preservation, and this is Ms. Luana Graves Sellers.
Thank you. And to add to my other comment was that if there's a property that has a specific critical need, that they get priority. That was what I wanted to say. Anyway, good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to, 10 of them are down. And so far, the biggest acreage losers of the neighborhoods are Baygal, Spanish Wells, Chaplin, and Mitchellville. So just to give you an idea, the areas that have had the majority of loss or the most amount of loss. But again, once the numbers are specific and I can give you greater detail, I will. So with that being said, also working on the tax lists. Of course, October 1st is the upcoming tax sale, trying to get a handle on that. So far on Hilton Head, we have 67 properties, which comes to about 119,000 in taxes that are due. I don't expect it to be that high. The closer we get, the more the list kind of shakes out. But once we get a little bit closer to September, for your September meeting, I'll have a better handle. But after that, it's really a week-to-week process up to the sale. But as we go along, I'll give you as much information as possible. The next report that I'll give you will be in October, and that will be based on where we are, what happened, and who we were able to help. Right now, the list of the 67 properties that are on there, the amount of taxes due is about $9,000 being the highest and $136 being the lowest. So that is the range, and obviously that's a significant range of dollar amounts. But again, as time goes on, people are still paying, and I'll keep a handle on that. Assessments are coming. Just want to make you aware that this is the time where the county is about to make their, they've already made their adjustments to the assessments. Those differences or reports will be coming out in the first and second week of September. I will say that I'm concerned about the assessments because of the amount of development. Even though there's a 15% cap on properties, if there's someone who's got $1 million and the other person's there's maybe $150,000, even a 15% raise for that person that's a $100,000 property, that's going to be significant. So educationally, that's something that that we're actively working on, making sure that the community is aware of. Which leads me to some of the different workshops that we've been doing. One of the workshops that is coming up is with Ebony Sanders, who is the assessor, so she can answer specific questions. And we also have a series of these. Just to give you an idea, these are the workshops that have been going on since April. We had the Wills Clinic. About 23 people came in that day and walked out with a free will. We also did a land use and forestry workshop, which was attended by about 15 people, which, considering community engagement on Hilton Head, that's pretty good. We are trying to make sure that we have a consistent schedule of workshops so people are prepared and are looking forward to them on a regular basis. And of course, we're still promoting them as best we can. Upcoming, we have a workshop with, we just had this workshop with the Center for Heirs Property, which was also well attended, and people were able to get some specific questions on their properties and things of that nature. And we have upcoming on Saturday another Wills Clinic. This one is in Penn Center, but people from Hilton Head have been invited to that as well. There will be another Wills Clinic on Hilton Head later on in the year. I believe it's in October, if my memory is correct. And then we have Maria Wells, who will be here on the island on August 26th. So she will be answering pre-tax sale questions for people so that they can come out and be prepared for the tax sale. So those are just some of the different workshops that we've had. There's been a lot of great information that's come out. If people are not aware, with your land use, there are carbon credits, there are ways that you can get paid $1,500 a year, which will cover your taxes, just for having land, even if it's not developed. So there's a lot of different good information that we're able to provide the community so that they are being able to get the maximum out of their land and/or fix whatever the heirs property issue that is going on. I'm working on the calendar for next year, planning on having a workshop once a month, which we've pretty much been doing with a variety of different people and topics so that everything that we're sharing is relevant and important to people in our community. So with that being said, which was a lot, does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, you had mentioned the one where you're going to have Ms. Sanders come. Have that one scheduled yet?
Yes, that one is October 7th. And with that one, it'll be the Center for Heirs Property, it will be Ebony Sanders, and it will be Maria Wells, the treasurer.
Other questions?
Walls, sorry.
Oh,
I
yes.
have one question, Mr. Chairman.
Malik?
Yes, ma'am. You mentioned in your inventory of land that number was a certain place, but then there was some loss. Was those lands lost or they sold?
It's hard for us to track specifically, you know, how the land was exchanged. I don't know if, Krishana, if that is even something that we can track. We're just going by the surnames and the numbers, the actual acres. If we can, you know, wheedle it down that far to see how it is, has been exchanged, you know, I mean, obviously that would be a great way of finding things out, but sometimes, you know, the property is just sold or, you know, lost.
I guess the reason I'm asking is because, I mean, to lose it is totally different than to sell it. I mean, I know either way it's a loss, but to just lose it or out of negligence is just something I don't want to think about.
Right, right. But it also, some people are selling it because they can't afford to keep it, or they don't know what to do with it.
Understand,
Or,
yeah.
you know, there's an heirs property issue and the best way to solve the argument is to just sell it. So I mean, that's kind of all part of the same problem.
But at least they sell it and they could gain something out of it and not
Yes.
just give it away or lose it just out
Right.
of, you know, pennies on pennies, you know?
Right.
That's the reason I asked. Thank you.
Absolutely.
I guess there's really no way, well, I should just ask the question. I know we talk about properties that are lost from Gullah Geechee culture, but are there any people who are acquiring property?
That's hard to track. I think that moving forward, the land numbers should be an annual thing versus, like, the first one was in 2017. We do have some 2021 numbers and then these numbers, but for this year, but I think that at least if it's once a year or every other year or something like that, that'll give us a better idea of the changes that are going on with the land.
And I would probably suggest maybe twice a year. If
Well-
we could have some sort of frequency, we get a better
Yes.
reading of, you know, a trend, if there's a trend happening.
Yes, absolutely.
Other
Absolutely.
questions?
Not a question, but a comment. You are bringing a wealth of information to the community and on a once-a-month basis, that seems right, and you're mixing up the topics, so I think, kudos to the town for connecting with you on that, and we want to make sure as a town that we're doing all we can to help you to publicize these opportunities. You're bringing it, let's make sure that we're all doing our part to get the folks there that can use this information.
Well, I do have to say thank you to Krishana, as well as Carolyn Grant, because let's take this flyer, when it's created, They're going to the town through Carolyn. They're also being distributed to all of the churches through their newsletters, as well as on social media, things to that extent. So yes, there is a nice collaboration between what I'm doing and what the town is doing, and making sure that things are progressing in a way that it's benefiting everybody.
Yeah,
So
that's a
yes,
really good public service, so thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Absolutely. And I do like it to see when we are working together, so that we don't have to reinvent the wheel every time we start an effort. But there are people out there who've been doing this probably a lot longer than we have, and maybe just not documented or as well organized. So coming together like that, that's other questions? Yes, sir.
I have a question. I'm not sure if my next topic of concern or discussion or question would be in order. We haven't met since, we've heard all of the news about Miss Josephine Wright. So I don't know, and I've got a horrible gut feeling about the task force. We were created somewhere down the line to assist and help preserve Gullah lands. And it appears that from the outside looking in, however you may do that, Ms. Wright seems to be having a battle to retain her property for whatever reason, whether we know that reason or not. And I just don't recall, Mr. Chairman, where the task force had shared an opinion or otherwise with such a highly publicized situation. And it's just something that I can't imagine us having been formed and have the title and the mission statement that we go by, that has nothing been said from this task force otherwise to support or in defense of Ms. Wright. So if it's a question to be answered somewhere, somehow, I'd like to understand why there hasn't been something. And Luana, I don't think that comes under what you do. Maybe it does, or whoever can answer. I just, Mr. Chairman, if I'm in order once again, understand why there's not been a response from the task force.
Well, if I may, it is related completely, her situation, to what I do. So her story, as well as a lot of other stories, with people who have not had or been fortunate enough to get the kind of word out on what's going on with them. As a rule, I'm not an attorney, so I try not to play one, even though I do have a little bit of litigation in the overall scheme of what Low Country Gullah Foundation does, is that it has brought in national attention to the overall issue of heirs property, so that other people know that, or the general public knows, that there are a lot of people who are suffering just like she is doing that right now. They're just suffering in silence and alone. So I'm just saying all of that to say that yes, I mean, I'm involved as much as I can, without getting into the legalese of where she is, and usually where situations like that are.
So let me just jump in a little bit here too. I mean, I've actually reached out to Ms. Wright. I have not heard back from her. And I know she's getting a lot of national attention and a lot of support. There's been a gentleman in Atlanta that we've been missing each other on a call, and I'm sure that's what he wants to talk about. But to Luana's point, what we do here at the task force is we've made ourselves available, and sometimes people take advantage of what we offer, and sometimes they invite us to stay out of their business. I'm happy to help any way I can, and we offer that support. So that's as much as I know, and I know Ms. Wright personally as well, like many of us do. But I'm happy to support and do whatever I can from wherever we are. Are you saying that we should make sort of public statement about her situation?
I mean, I think clearly if we know enough about the situation, clearly she's in a fight. She's in a fight to preserve and to hold on to her land, whether that's legal or just, obviously that's legal at this point. Clearly that's legal at this point. My point is that there's been no statement from us, whether invited or uninvited, there's been nothing from us in support. I mean, I think there's something, I've heard some comments from, I think Sean had a comment somewhere about something, but I still don't find where, and I guess it's all because it's legal, and the town, I'm sure, takes a legal response to such a situation, but my issue still is this task force was formed under the rules, regulations, and guidelines to help preserve. I mean, I don't think that should be a solicited situation from a Gullah person when they're having the kind of problem. It seems like we should have, if we are waiting to hear from her, I mean, we may not hear from her, but it's not, then dismiss the fact that we know what's happening. And for nothing to have been, nothing that I'm aware of in support or otherwise has come from us. It seems in my mind, there is something that we could have said and probably even should have said, given the nature of what we say we do. So, I mean, I don't think that's legal unless every statement has to be a legal one at this point. I don't think support has to come in the form of a legal statement. But there's been nothing that has come from the task force that I'm aware of.
Yeah, and I'm happy to work with you on that if you think there's something that we need to draft as far as the statement goes. My biggest concern is to make sure that I understand exactly what the situation is before I make a comment on that. Also, understanding that we are also under the purview of the Planning Commission of the town of Hilton Head. I understand your point, and I agree that maybe something should be said, but I want to make sure that we say the right thing and it's coming from the right place. How do we do that? We can certainly do that as individuals, but I'm happy to make that come from the task force too. But I think there's some footwork that needs to be done to understand that. Councilman Brown has his hand up. He might be able to give us some insight on this and our position and what our position ought to be.
Afternoon.
Afternoon.
I would first say to the task force in response to Mr. Simmons' question, there has been a press release that has gone out officially from the town of Hilton Head in regards to Ms. Wright's situation, okay? Recently, yes. I will also say that it is a legal matter as far as her fight with the developer, okay? Now, as far as the mission of the task force, okay, I think Ms. Sellers makes a great point that this is a much bigger story and concern that the task force has been working on from its inception. As far as public statements are concerned, I would ask you all, if you're considering doing something like that, that you strongly have conversations with our town attorney and town manager around that. We don't want this body to get out ahead of anything as far as what's going on there legally. I would just recommend that strongly, okay?
Thank you.
Alice, before you leave, I mean, clearly, I mean, I think the point is that, obviously the town obviously may have some fight in this battle because of permitting. I mean, it has to be, in my mind, that a developer have a permit that they were granted, and then all of a sudden your permit now all of a sudden, well, I don't know about all of a sudden, but a permit that you have to develop encroaches on someone else's property. How does that even happen? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, clearly there's a legal issue here, and I think the town is probably somewhere very deep in the mix of that, in my opinion, if you understand permitting at all. I mean, how do you permit a project that encroaches on someone else's property, or a developer can make such a claim? But your point is very well taken, that we come out. My point is not to overstep any legal boundaries, but it doesn't dismiss how this task force was formed. I mean,
Absolutely.
by no means. I mean, I just think that if you are the task force that we are, and you haven't said nothing, then we definitely need to seek some legal guidance, some legal counsel, and make a statement. That's just, I don't see a way around that for whom we are as a task force.
Sure. Point taken. And
All right.
Mr. Chair, I would again recommend that y'all take a look at the statement that has already been made and then go from there. So,
Mr. Brown, may I ask? You said the statement was made recently. Has it been within the last 24 hours, a new statement, or since, like, say, Friday?
well, I have to be completely honest with you, Mr. Malik. I don't know when the statement came out because I'm just getting caught up on some emails from about 2 weeks ago. That's what I was doing over here, and I just read it. Okay, so it's out there.
This is my point.
I did read something on last, I think it was last Thursday or Friday, from the town.
I believe so. I saw something as well.
Sean made a statement that you're talking about.
I think it came from,
I think, yeah, the one I read came from, Mark Orlando.
Okay, well, now, that's not what I'm.
But my suggestion on the subject would be, if it's gonna be something that we are going to be taking a position on, that we need to at least be informed as to
my
the
point.
whole
That is my point.
process, or the whole kit and caboodle, the real story, the whole story.
Absolutely. That's my point. And I would like to table this discussion. This is really not an agenda item. I appreciate you bringing that up.
Came
We
under
can
land
talk about that
preservation.
offline, all right?
And I just wanted to say that I can help you all facilitate
Absolutely.
that, so we can be in touch via email and such.
Thank you. Okay, Heritage Library Heirs Property Presentation, Ms. Linda Pickett is here. Sorry to delay you, and we saved the best for last.
I hate being the follow-on to a discussion like that. Good afternoon, I'm Linda Piggott from the Heritage Library. And talking about our process in doing heirs property. We know that the first step in resolving heirs property is to know who your family is. And we have people right now who have been sent back from the Center for Heirs Property Preservation because they don't have their full documentation yet. That's where the Heritage Library can come in. We have a process in place that we've been using since the inception. We involve the town in the initial process, in the initial step of the process. And I think you have all of this information in your packet. We ask the clients who are interested, no matter how they come into us, Luana has referred people to us, Herb has referred people to us, but the first thing I do is turn around and also we've had people come through Charisse when she was here. But the first thing that happens is that they meet with, at this point, it's Krishana. The reason we do that, a couple reasons, is because number one, the town is the partner in this project and the town needs to understand who's coming to us. The second reason that we do that is for our library liability. To some point, we want that client vetted. We want to have questions asked of that client so that we all know the environment we're working in. We do not want to have a client who's already in litigation. That puts us into a legal bind, and we're not going to do that. Plus some other things. The person who comes to Krishana should be the person that agrees to be the family representative in this process, in our deliberation. And also, we want to work with a direct descendant and hopefully the taxpayer in this process, because they're the ones that are most impacted. Once that step is completed, the referral comes to me. We set up a team and we set up an initial meeting with the client. Again, with the client, we do an agreement so that they understand that we will do the very best that we can, but we can't guarantee that we're going to be perfect. Because of the fact that we're working with, I've got very experienced genealogists who are working this project, so the skills are there, but we're working with living people, so the records aren't there. We're doing a lot of secondary information, using a lot of secondary information where when we're researching dead people, we have primary information. And so the databases that we're using are different. The other thing that we ask the client to agree to, is that they will work with us. As we go along, we will have status meetings on a regular basis with the client. We go off, we do our thing, we come back, and we say, okay, this is what we found. This is what we think you look like, but you need to tell us if this makes sense to you. We also know that we don't always find the most, one of the pieces of information that we try to find is the last known address, because we know the attorneys, when this gets turned over, are going to want to know what the addresses are of the family members. So we try to find what we can through public information, True People Source, white pages, different public databases that give addresses, and we'll put those into the program. But the client needs to look at that and say, oh, I think they've moved. Let me find that address. Or this isn't quite right in this family structure because of one reason or another. So we meet regularly with the clients for confirmation in their mind that we're going the right direction. Our process takes 4 to 5 months per client. It's very intense for that period of time. My volunteers work in teams, and I tell them I'm their worst enemy, because once they've worked on it for a while, I'm going to look at it and I say, well, what about this? Well, what about this? Why have you not looked there? So we do a very intensive process on each client. When we're done, then we'll present the client with charts, with full reports of everything that we found, plus all of the proof documentation. And that's where the attorneys are looking. If you've got someone who died, how do you know that? What is your proof in your family tree? So we give them all of that. This is in your packet, this is just a random deed I pulled off of the Registrar of Deeds website. But the kind of thing that we need to start with. We verify, once we know the property, we go into the assessor system, and we find the most valid deed for the property, and we make sure that we're working from that most valid, latest deed. So therefore, we know the deed holder that we're starting with. This is a chart, this is actually my family. This is basically the kind of chart that we work with a client. I find that this is very, very visual and helps a lot in working with the client. This is my grandfather, my grandmother, and 3 other generations. I put my family into the package that we use. This is one random page. And it actually runs 20 pages long. So far, we haven't had a family that's been that big, but I have printed off 12 pages of a chart. This chart is very nice in our software because we can actually decide what fields we want to display in this chart. So I can say, okay, I want the birth, I want the marriage, I want the death, and that's what we work with. If you're doing basic stuff, vital statistics, birth, marriage, death, and whether or not we added a field, whether or not this person is an heir, based on what we know, And we've added a field called last known address that we use for the oldest living descendants. And then we go one generation further because we know that things happen. And if we can add one generation down in the process, we'll do that. So this is very visual. It's easy to use to work with our clients, and it will be one of the final products that we do. Along with that, you'll get a report, and this is generation one, so that top line on that chart, these are the people that are involved, and it gives all the facts, and it gives notes. The notes here, when you do your normal family research, the notes are the family stories and all that kind of thing that you know about your family. When we do our notes, the notes that we put into the package are the notes on the facts. This is where we found this fact. This is why we have to make some assumptions, because we're working with living people, and for privacy issues, not all facts are known. So we have to make some assumptions based on secondary information, and we'll put that in the note. We'll say, this is why we believe this, and that kind of thing, so that the family understands where this information is coming from, and the attorneys understand what we looked at. Along with the report, at the end of the report, there are always the list of all of the sources that we've used. And it's usually several pages long, but everything that we do, we try to source. At the end of the report, then, are all the original documents that we found. If we have birth, marriage, or death certificates, those are original documentation that can be used as facts. If we don't have a lot of those original documentation. This is a census record. And you'll see right up at the top, there's my grandfather and the family that was living with him in 1910. That helps connect the family together. So what we're looking for are not only the facts on each family, but we're looking for the things that connect the families together, because we're trying to prove heirs. So the final package is chart, report, and sources, and final documents, proof documents. And that's what we do in our process. Any questions?
Very good, definitely good information. And my question may not be such an important one, but I just wanted to go back and I heard you mention beginning the process, and trying to find the initial folks, you use the person who pays the taxes. I think you may have made such a statement as that. I'm relative to that, because I find, a lot of times the person who pays the taxes could be the last person in the world to have any ownership at all.
Well, yeah, there's no ownership involved, but usually the person who pays the taxes is the one that's suffering. And we want to, for purposes of legitimizing the people that we're working with, we like to work with a taxpayer who's on record. That way, we want to protect ourselves, and we want to protect our families from working with people who are not trying to bring the family together, if you understand what I mean. I don't want to work with somebody I've had somebody who called me and said, can you send me the family tree for so-and-so? And I said, no. I said, we have a process involved, and I don't know you. Okay. So we're very cautious about who we're working with.
Very sensitive information, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I just know that sometimes, people assume with taxes that they have ownership rights to a property. Paying the taxes doesn't give you ownership rights to the property. But if you say the process works as you do it, then, I guess that's fine.
Yeah, the least we want is a direct descendant of the deed holder. And then we know we've got an heir that we're working with. But, you know, it's helpful to us if we're working with the taxpayer.
So, Linda, probably in some previous presentations and workshops and just some of the, I guess, reading I've done on my own, when you list the sources of information, certainly when I started in real estate some years ago, we realized that even obituaries are a good place, a good source of information, even though they may be subject to some errors, just because it's maybe not an official government document.
Obituary, well, we found out, I worked quite a bit with the attorneys at the Center for Heirs Property in understanding what they need. If we get into this process, what do they need from the family that we can help supply? And also in doing the research in South Carolina and on the Sea Islands, which is another whole level of research, secondary information like obituaries are gold. Okay?
The other part of that question or statement that I was going to ask you about was, I've learned that also one of those sources is through like military records and also legal records, if like if there's been an arrest or things like that.
No, we don't.
You don't use any of those resources?
No.
Now, that's
The
probably.
military, we do.
Military.
I
Now, that
have,
probably comes from something else that I read, and because we're talking about people who are of Gullah Geechee culture or just of black and brown people, that when they're incarcerated, then that creates a record of who they are.
it does,
They're
but
documented.
I'm not sure that that record does anything for their family research. I'm not sure if that does that. I have requested, if I know that somebody has been in the military, I have requested the DD 214, the discharge record, because it gives me an address for when they went in, and it gives me an address for when they go out. So if I'm tracing somebody, and this was a person who was born on Hilton Head, but lo and behold, he got married, and when he was out of the military, he was in Brooklyn. So we had to follow that family. We have to remember the history of the island, history of the South, and the fact that we're not going to be doing research on Hilton Head necessarily. We're going to be researching in Brooklyn. We've done research in Philadelphia. We've done research in Rochester. So we know that when we're looking at these families, we have to understand.
And I guess that's a part of my point. Just like military records, if they were ever incarcerated,
Yeah.
those records, they have to identify that individual some kind of way too. Does that not help in researching the?
We have not gone, we have the facility, we have the ability to do that. We've not gone there. If we can research that family and get what we believe is good, solid family without that, we've never had to go into prison records or anything else. I'd prefer not to.
I mean, it's not the happiest place to be, but it is where a lot of good information is. And
Yeah.
because, I guess my point is because of the history of this country, we know that black and brown people have not always been treated fairly, and it's just another good source of information as far as documenting people. I share that with you on a personal note because my grandfather was, some of the information we found, we were researching our family tree, found out that he had been arrested when he served in the Navy, unjustly so. He eventually was released, but it was a way of us finding a record of his history. That history,
Yeah.
helping to establish that family line.
Yeah.
Just a question.
I think it depends on the family line and depends on what you're looking for as well, because the record If the record is simply about the person, it may not do us any good. If the record is about the person's connection to the family, then it would be helpful. Connections are really important because that's how you follow the line of inheritance. So,
Questions for you?
Linda, thank you. In all of this work that the Heritage Library does, is that gratis for your clients?
yes.
That's
Yes.
wonderful. How are you funded, or is it all volunteer?
Through you.
Through,
Right, we have a
Town?
we have a partnership with you, with the town of Hilton Head, and we have a partnership with USCB. USCB gives us office space, and we can use conference rooms if we need to, if we have more people. And the town of Hilton Head pays our bills. Thank you very much.
thank you, another wonderful resource for the community.
Okay, thank you, Linda, so much for that. It's a very important work that you're
Okay,
doing.
thank you. I have an ask of you. If you are in the community, in your churches, talking to people who might have heirs property, please let them know what we're doing. We are participating with Luana in some of the workshops. Let them know what we're doing. Please let them know that it's private. We are members of the Heritage Library. Most of my volunteers are members of the Heritage Library, or volunteers at the Heritage Library. But we don't work in the Heritage Library. We work at USCB. And so their information is not intermingled. Please make them know that it's private, it's free. And I don't know if I want to say this out loud, but I'm going to. It's not necessarily connected to the legal side of the house. We have no way to know if someone comes into us to do family research, if they take their information and go further or not. Sometimes they tell us, sometimes they don't. My concern is it takes us 4 or 5 months to work with a client. If something happens that client needs that information more quickly, if they had come into us just to do it, they have heirs property, we can validate they have heirs property. They come in and get their family tree done. It can be a living document. That chart could be taken to a family reunion and say, here, fill in anything that's changed as you go along. You have it. You can pass it along. If you don't want to go to attorney, you still have it. So I would like you to pass that word along that we're here and we're doing this work, and we have no ability to say, okay, now you have to take this work on to an attorney. And I think that step is scary. And I think that there are some of our residents who are afraid of that legal step, but they can be prepared, especially in the environment that we're in now. So please take that forward.
Great, great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Linda.
And I should have said this at the beginning, but I was excited to have Linda come and share a presentation with y'all today because I got to sit in on one of her volunteer experiences and see how this process works and how it helps families. And then, of course, this is a full circle moment because I get phone calls from members of the community saying that they want to do something with their property, and then it's, they can't because they don't have any property ownership documentation, or they have a deed, but it has 25 names on it, or what have you. And then, of course, this is also in relation to our recommendations from the report. We have a couple of recommendations to work with the Heritage Library to promote their services. And so that is a part of us fulfilling those recommendations. And then, of course, with everything that Luana's doing, a lot of this ties back to heirs property and actually being able to have your family tree and know what that succession is. So just wanted to bring that full circle and summarize, why it's so important to have Linda here today. And thank you so much, everyone, for your time. I know it's been a doozy. It's a long one.
Okay, great. Thank you. Anyone from the public have any questions or comment? Mr. Scott?
Good afternoon, Taiwan Scott. There was a couple things that a lot of information came out, but I want to make sure that we have a direction of where we're going. There's a lot of stuff that's going on now with the district plan, and I think we need to be more aware of what's happening with the district plan. I think there was one of the screens there showed that the Native Islanders are the biggest contributors to workforce housing. Taking that into consideration, last town council actually brought in a group of consultants from different areas that talked about accessory dwelling units. We need to focus on that. I think there's an opportunity there that we're missing when it comes down to what we can do with our property. Accessory dwelling units versus mobile homes. We have the Gullah Geechee Economic Development Corporation coming online. Maybe there's some incentives out there. Instead of putting mobile homes on our property, having accessory dwelling units. Now, taking that into consideration, we also got to look at what recently the Planning Commission passed with the floor area ratio and parking. How is that going to affect the Native Island community? I mean, it's saying that it's not going to affect the use of our property when we have heirs property or we have family subdivisions and family compounds. What happens afterwards? What happens when we get our property subdivided? How is that floor area ratio going to impact the use of our property? These are things that we need to be taking into consideration. We need to be looking more into, again, the accessory dwelling units. It comes up every now and then. Nobody follows up on it, but there's a huge opportunity there. Also, we talked about the subdivisions that are currently approved versus the certificate of occupancy, certificate of compliance. I think Mr. Simmons mentioned that, we have been able to get it done. It is an opportunity to get it done, but is it really getting done? I mean, do we really have a strong case of a quote unquote paper subdivision when it ultimately comes back down to infrastructure being in place in order to get the final CFC? So it's something that's approved on record, but do we really have a record of it and a good example of it happening without having a financial burden on that family in order to get their deeds? I'm not seeing that yet. I mean, we got 2 years in at least, but I mean, we have to look further into that financial impact on those family members and why aren't people running to get family subdivisions done? Now, we do still question, why am I gonna run to get my property subdivided when there's a potential density increase in the future? Because, I mean, it's been recommended by the task force for increased density. I mean, we don't have people running to the town to get subdivision, get property subdivided, knowing that potentially we can have some additional density out there. But accessory dwelling units can be a huge economic impact for the Gullah landowners and to help with the workforce housing crisis that we have. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Anyone else? Well, thank you all for the public and for our staff here at the Town of Hilton Head and most of all my colleagues here on the dais for your time and attention and your efforts. And we will continue to do the good work of this Gullah Geechee Land and Cultural Preservation Task Force. I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
So move.
Thank you so much. We find ourselves adjourned. Please have a good afternoon. Thank you all.